parents transferring their trauma onto us and calling it raising. One of the things that we have to realize is that parents manipulate their children. Children are quite intuitive. They can see and understand based on gestures, tone of voice, facial expressions, even energy. So children are very intuitive. And so as children, this child was in this environment where the child learned what was acceptable and what was unacceptable. As a result, altered its behavior because it's dependent on these adults for survival, right? That parents manipulate their children with their approval and disapproval. So many of us have learned what's acceptable and what's not acceptable from our parents' disapproval and sometimes even violence. So this creates a fragmentation of the true self and our false self. So there is an innate being that we are on the inside. We come into this world with our personalities and we enter into these environments where there are people who are our caretakers whom we could not survive without. And so as a result, there are things that we must do in order to not only survive, but thrive. And one of the things that helps us thrive as children is doing things in the ways that our parents want them done. So how does this relate to you? Okay. I want you to think back to your childhood and I want you to think about some of the things that you got punished for when your parents felt that it was time for you to speak up or be quiet, how they handled you performing chores, who in the home got to do those chores, what things were encouraged and what things were discouraged. And how did your parents encourage or discourage those things? Because it doesn't even have to be sinister. It can be as much as sadness. You can cry and be sad as a child, and your parent can say something like, raise your hand if you've heard this, or put up the number 1. Your parents can say something along the lines of, I'll give you something to cry for. Raise your hand if you have the emoji, or put up the number 1 if you're on a computer, if you've heard that before. I'll give you something to cry for. I'm curious about how many people have heard that. What is the underlying message in I'll give you something to cry for? So classes in session, you're going to have to use a little bit of your brain. I want you to tell me, what is the underlying message?